everyone, it's Janet and welcome to my channel. Today is video number 2 on craft room organization, and this video is going to be about planning your room and making sure that when you plan it and you get all done that you have room for everything that you plan to put in it. So all you need are a few things to get started. You need some graph paper. I recommend 3 colors, white and 2 other colors. And I have a link in my video description for you to print this particular grid paper that I use for free. And you're going to need a few other things. You're going to need a tape measure to measure your room and your existing furniture. You're going to want a very sharp point pencil because you want a fine line, so that's why I say sharp. You're going to want a good little eraser. You're going to want a scissor, a ruler, and some repositional adhesive. With these tools we can go ahead and plan out our room and then figure out how we're going to fit everything in. So let's take a look at these pieces a little bit closer and I'll explain the process. Alright, here is the drawing that I did of my room, and you can see the different pieces that I've got here in different colors of paper. This is grid paper. It looks like this when you print it. It's just simple. And what you'll use is this grid paper to determine a scale. Scale references how many feet or inches are in every little block on this paper. For my room, it is about 12 by 12 square. And so I decided to use the scale of 1/2 inch equals a foot. That means every 1/8 inch equals 3 inches. So when I was planning pieces of furniture and it's 3 feet 2 inches, I could pretty accurately, draw a line in that 1/8 inch, dividing it up in 3 and just kind of eyeballing, basically 2/3 of that 1/8 inch square to get the appropriate measurement. This isn't perfect, of course. It is not extremely precise, but it is close enough to get you where you need to go. So let's start by how I got here. Once you have your scale, you can start drawing and measuring your room. So what I did is I went and took my measuring tape, got my son to help me, and we measured the walls. And we also measured where the windows and the doors were and any other obstructions. So let me take all of my little pieces off here and you can see what I mean. What you want to do is draw just your basic room with, like I say, your windows, doors, and any other obstructions, and make a few copies of it because you might need several of them before you're done, just kind of playing with things. And so you can just make sure once you've drawn it once you don't have to redraw it again. So what I did is I measured, for example, this long wall was 12 feet. Well, really, it was a little bit longer than 12 feet when you measured from wall to wall. But what I had to keep in mind are the baseboards. Baseboards are going to take, if you have them, some space from your wall. Mine are very large baseboards. They're about 1 inch thick. So this room's actually more like 12 feet too, but from baseboard to baseboard, I had 12 feet. So make sure you're considering that type of obstruction when you're measuring. Otherwise you may find you buy some furniture and it's 1 inch too short or 1 inch too long, which would be really discouraging and annoying. So be careful of that. Also in my room I had some light switches on this wall. It doesn't take up obviously all this space on the wall with light switches, but they start at this point. So basically I put that I had 2 feet 8 inches clear on this wall to hang something, because then I would start obstructing the light switch at that point if I went beyond 2 feet 8. I drew in windows, so you can see on this wall I measured 1 foot 3 inches between the wall and my window. Now for me, I measured my window starting with the trim around my window. I didn't measure the actual inside window, but the trim, because for the most part I want to stay clear of my trim to keep my windows more open and unobstructed. However, I did violate that principle in one place, and I'll show you that later. And those are the kind of decisions that you'll have to make as you're doing your planning. So anyway, we've got 3 feet 1.5 inches from the trim to trim on the window. Then I had 38.5 inches between the windows, and then again 3.5 inches for the trim to trim on this window. Then there was 1 foot 4 inches of space between the end of the window and the corner of the wall. Then 1 feet 6 inches between that corner and the beginning of my door. Again, I measured the casings or the trim around the door. And then my door is actually 3 feet 9 inches, which then left 6 feet 10 inches of clear space here. And finally, wrapping around, I had 4 feet 3 inches clear space here. Okay, so now I had my room all laid out, and I know what I have to work with. So then I brought in the pieces of furniture that I knew I wanted to try to continue to use. So in my case, I had a Kallax 5x5. I wrote on here the name of it and the dimensions. So I wrote 73 inches, which is the width. It's 74 inches tall, and it's 15 1/8 inches deep. And so I drew on this green paper, which represents, for me anyway, furniture I already have. I drew it out based on the squares. So, for example, the depth is 15 1/8 inches. Each square here is 3 inches, so 3, 6, 9, 12, and then I went a little bit further into 15.5. It's really almost 16 inches, and I probably got this a little short actually, but it was close enough for this kind of planning that we're doing. So the main thing is really more so than being exactly the right depth. In most cases you want to make sure you're closer to the exact right length. And I did the same thing here. 73 inches is 6 feet 1 inch in length. So I put that in, and I used repositionable adhesive on the back. Now be careful with this, because if you use the repositional adhesive and then let it sit there for days and days, it might stick permanently. Just keep that in mind, because if you do have something like it happen where you have to trash it because your piece is stuck permanently or something like that, you don't have to start completely from scratch. Okay, the next piece of furniture that I had that I definitely wanted to use was this origami unit. And hopefully that is in the picture when I am talking about this, so you can see what the area that is. So this origami unit is quite tall, and it holds all of my electronic cutters. There's some drawers in there, and also the top shelf I use for my printer. So I violated my rule about encroaching on this window and door a little bit, because there's some clearance room behind it here in the corner. That means when I use my cutters and my 12-inch mat goes back and forth through the front and the back of the cutter, there's already clearance room there, and I don't have to move my origami shelving unit forward every time I want to use it and then move it back after I'm done. My line of thinking is the less you have to move things around, the more you will use it. So for this reason, and for that benefit of clearance, I was okay with encroaching a little bit on this. Now, can my door open 100% all the way to against the window like it would, or just about normally? No. It will open, you know, 3/4 of the way. It's certainly enough room to get in and out. And honestly, we're not going in and out onto this porch very much anyway. So again, the fact that this can be here kind of outweighs the little bit of encroachment that occurs here. And if I really needed to open this door all the way, of course I can move my origami unit out and do that. The other unit I have is a craft cart. You'll see that in the picture too. It's the white unit with the doors, the drawers actually. And it also has an expandable work surface. So I'm keeping that around because I think it will come in handy sometimes. So I put that right here. There's plenty of room. It sits in front of my window a little bit. My windows are really tall, so they are lower than countertop height, so you're always going to obstruct the window a little bit. But they are tall, so there's still a huge amount of window above any countertop that I have there with the craft cart. So again, I violated my rule of obstruction here, but for good reasons. over here, I still have a completely open window, which is nice. All right. Then I needed to figure out, well, okay, so I've got extra space left. Now, what do I want to put in here? I knew I needed a desk. So I began hunting Facebook Marketplace. I figured a desk from IKEA would probably be best, so I put in a search request for that so that I would get a notice every time somebody had an IKEA specific desk that they were listing. But I also had just a general listing for desk because you never know what's going to show up, and I wanted to be flexible about what I ended up choosing. So in the end, I found this desk. It was actually the first piece I bought. It was pretty inexpensive. It was $130. It was in great shape. It's IKEA, and it actually was bigger than this. It came with another piece that attached to this joint, and I knew that was going to be too big based on the measurements that was given, but if I took it off, it fit perfectly. And the other nice thing about this desk, it's really deep right here, 31.5 inches deep. If you've never had anything deeper than a 24-inch work surface, man, 31.5 or 30 inches is, that's extra 6 inches or so. Makes all the difference in the world. This allows me to put my monitors here, have my keyboard, and still have plenty of room to work with. The other thing I liked about this desk is it had a curved end. And because you're going around to get to a door, or you're going around to get to the origami unit, having a curved edge is a lot more comfortable when you walk by because you're not dealing with a corner. It's just a tiny thing, but it helps with the flow of the room, and you may not have the luxury of that corner, of that curve, but when I saw that it had that, I was even more determined to make it work. It will always feel more comfortable than that chunky square edge. It's not an issue on this side because this is the doorway. The corner of this unit, or the end of it, is not visible when you walk in, so you don't feel that same kind of harsh corner when you come in because of that. So again, the flow really helps with that rounded corner. And any place that you're trying to go through areas, having a rounded corner will again make that feel a little more comfortable. Okay, so then what? I knew I wanted to use IKEA as much as possible because IKEA is fairly inexpensive, number one, and they also have units that I was pretty familiar with. The Calyx being one. That's the cubby unit, but also PAX. Now PAX is really a wardrobe unit. I had a PAX unit already in the house, and I knew how handy it was and how great it was because of its height in my house with tall ceilings, or high ceilings. So I measured out these PAX units and cut them out. So here's one. It's 39 inches. I put it right here in the end. Now this is 39 inches, and it's 13 3/4 inches deep. So anything that's 12 inches is going to fit inside of this really well, and that's what I had learned from having the other PAX unit. I didn't recycle and reuse that like I did the Calyx because the one that we have is in our hall and is full, and it's used primarily by my son, so I wasn't going to steal that from him. But by being so tall, there's only a clearance of about a foot or so that I have, and I'm able to use that entire height for storage. All right, and then I needed some work surface. So that is the thing. You do have to kind of figure out, how much work surface do I need? And you need work surface, of course, to do your crafting on, but you may also need it for your cutting machines, printers, your die cutter, and that sort of thing. So I was lucky. Again, I was able to use vertical space. That's where this origami unit came in handy, because if I had to put these 3 machines, which are quite large, on a countertop, it would take so much room I wouldn't have any place to work. So by using a taller unit and stacking them, I really eliminated a lot of the countertop use that I would have had otherwise. However, I still had a die cutting machine. I've got a Gemini, and I wanted a kind of a die cutting station where I could have most of my dies right there along with my cutters, and so I decided to go with a Calyx 2x2 unit. So that is 2 cubbies wide by 2 cubbies tall. And you can just use that as a work surface, or some people have built bases underneath them so they come up a little bit, because it is relatively short, but I'm a short person, so it's okay for me. If you're tall, you probably want to either build or have somebody build a little bit of a base maybe for it to get it up a bit higher. So anyway, this is then where my die cutter went. Now, all along, because it's 12 by 12, I still have a lot of space in the middle, and I thought it would be perfect to have an island. And the second piece that I purchased was just that. That's the island that I'm photographing on right now. And I knew that this could fit really nicely, could fit in the middle there, no problem at all. I cut it based on the dimensions that I was given, and I knew that this would work really well. Also, the corners, although I didn't cut it that way, they have a little bit of a rounding here. So I knew it would be comfortable to walk around it when I came through here, right? So that was a plus for it. Plus it was pretty, and it was recycled. So somebody had made it out of a bottom kitchen cabinet, placed a new top on it, and they painted it to look like faux marble or stone, and then coated the top with epoxy. So it's beautiful, it's functional, it was perfect. Also, because I am using this room not only for crafting but for video production, I wanted to have a counter that I could stand behind like I did in the introduction of this video, so that I could spend more time in front with you rather than always be like this overhead and never showing my face. So it met a lot of needs. Also, there's doors and 2 drawers on this side of it. So ton of storage space inside. And there is a shelf, a half shelf in there, so it's very functional that way. The 2 drawers are not very deep, you know, this way, but they're very large dimension-wise as a rectangle, so they can hold a lot of stuff. So I bought that, and then I noticed, hey, you know, I've got a lot of space, it's plenty comfortable, so how about I add another PAX unit. This PAX unit is shorter than this one. It's 29.5 versus 39 inches. I did that because I didn't want to encroach on my windows, frankly. And so then I placed this up to here, and boom, I can see I have plenty of room between my Calyx and my chairs, and I drew the chairs pretty close to dimension also based on the seat size. And then you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. Each square equals 1 inch. Each square equals 3 inches. So 7 times 3 is 21 inches. So just shy of 2 feet there. So that's plenty of room to come back behind and do, you know, look for things on this Calyx unit. So I was a little worried about this space being big enough to go through. But thanks to having it all laid out to scale, I could tell that 1.25 inches clearance here equals 2 feet and 6 inches, so 2.5 feet, which is plenty of room to walk through and not, you know, have to go sideways or some crazy thing like that. I also, once I bought this desk, drew out the chair. The chair was an existing piece too, and I put that in. So this isn't exactly how I thought it would be, but I was patient. I watched Facebook Marketplace. I got some of these units used for half price basically, and they were new in box. Like this PAX unit was brand new in the box. This one was also brand new in box, but they were sold in Facebook Marketplace. Now the doors that I have, I had to search long and hard for, and just being very, very patient. It took several months. These doors for the PAX unit, especially the glass ones, are pretty expensive. So I ended up haunting, looking for just the doors, which some people do sell. Unfortunately, I couldn't find just brand new doors that were tall enough, but I did run across another PAX unit with the doors that I have, and it was really beat up. It had probably been used in a kid's room or something, and they'd been very hard on it. So the unit itself was in rough shape, but the doors were in pristine condition. And I bought the unit with the doors for a song, took the doors off and put them on the new PAX, and it's beautiful. It works great, and I saved a bundle doing it that way. Now, if I had waited 3-4 months and I still didn't find doors, I might have purchased new doors just to finish up my room. But I kind of think I would have just waited. I would have put everything in the way I have it now without the doors and just kept haunting, because the doors are, you know, they're way more expensive than the unit itself. Also keep in mind that PAX units don't come with any shelves. Both the 39-inch and the 29.5-inch units, you have to buy shelves at $10 each. And I put 6 shelves in each of these. So that added another $60 to the price. I did buy this PAX unit brand new at IKEA. And I did, yeah, that's the only one I guess I really bought there at IKEA. So I did save, I think, a lot of money. I've never calculated it, but it's got to be close to $800 to $1,000, mainly because of these doors, because the doors alone would be over $300. So anyway, that's how I did it. And the main thing is just use your grid, draw it out, calculate using your little squares, use a ruler to get things nice and straight. Draw your windows in any way you want. This is how I did mine, but you could do it any way that made sense to you. We're not architects here, so whatever works for you works. And the same with the door. I just put my handle here and a long rectangle, and that was good enough for my needs. You could also, on the side here, write each unit and their measurements if you'd like. I did that initially, and then I realized if I just wrote it on my pieces, I was good to go. And if you ruin your pieces, just take them, you can put them on your grid paper and retrace them and cut them out. So the hard work is at first just drawing it all out and then cutting your pieces. So there you go. Now let's talk about how to know if what you've designed is really going to meet your needs, particularly for storage. So here's what I did, and this is what architects and designers will do when they're working for clients. They come and see the space that they're doing, and they want to know, how are you using your space? That's going to help figure out how much storage you need, how much countertop you need, and in the case of a business workplace, do you need filing cabinets, and if so, how much? And then they make sure that whatever they design will fit that particular need. So I followed a similar concept. I went and I measured in all the closets and cubbies and drawers, you know, how much lineal space I was using. Lineal space just refers to the length of something. It doesn't have anything to do with the depth. So I measured the bookcases, the shelves in my closets, and so on, my paper collection, all the stuff that was being stored, and I came up with how many feet that was. Then I looked at my PAX units and I said, okay, if I have 6 shelves, that's 7 dimensions times either 39 or 29.5 inches, whichever one you use, and you calculate how much lineal feet that is. I did the same when I did the island. I did 2 lineal feet dimensions because I've got a half shelf there that I can stack on top, so that gave me a dimension to work with. And then I used my origami unit. You know, I didn't have to measure for my cutters and things because they were already on there, so I knew I didn't have to calculate any lineal space for that. However, I did know that I needed some countertop for my Gemini die cutter, and that's kind of how I settled on using this Calyx. Then I looked at how much space I was taking up versus how much space I was going to have in this new room. The Calyx, the same thing. I measured the lineal, or the length of each cubby, multiplied that out, and compared that to what I had measured. And guess what? I was pretty short. I was actually about 30 feet short. So I realized that I needed to get rid of some stuff. So I started to purge, and I will tell you that it really gave me a lot of incentive to purge when I knew what I was trying to purge for, which was to get everything comfortably in a new room. Now, I also have a closet in this room, and I figured most of this will fit in my closet. And I do have this closet kind of stuffed right now. It's about half used if you're looking at the height of the closet. But I figured even with that, I was still going to need about 10 feet of room in this space to get the things I wanted in this space. Not in the closet, but in this space because I use it often enough. So I went to purging, and I actually got rid of 4 feet of paper. I got rid of papers that I'd had for 10 years or more, most of them, or papers that didn't apply anymore, like a real childish paper. You know, my son is 15 now. I'm not going to use that probably. So I donated all of that to a local preschool, they were thrilled to get it. I also went through and gave away and sold other things, some tools I wasn't using, some embellishments, stickers, just everything that I could find that I really thought, you know, I haven't used this for years. I'm not really going to miss it. So I was able to get rid of about 7 feet worth of materials, and I measured that as I got rid of it. So I knew I still had 3 feet left to go, but I found that as I moved in, I continued to consolidate. I continued to throw out things that I, you know, had no use for and didn't think somebody else would want. And I was able to fit it all in. And in fact, I have extra room right now to grow in. So that's how I knew, basically, when I put all this in, that everything was going to fit. And I already knew, you know, essentially what I was going to put in these units before I even moved them in, because I planned, you know, I thought, well, where do I want my 12 by 12 paper? It had been in a cabinet. Hard to get at. I had to get on my knees to look at it because it was a lower cabinet. So I decided I wanted to put it in my calyx at room height. And how much room would that take? Well, I figured it would take 4 cubbies based on how much paper I had left there. Then I figured I needed a place to put my Copic markers. That was going to take one of the squares. I knew I wanted a holder for my punches. That was going to take up 1 square, and so on and so forth. But my main thing to you is plan, because when you plan, you can then take your time to find what you need for this room without spending a bundle, especially if you can take enough time to find it on, say, Marketplace or other furniture marts where you can buy good quality, still good condition used furniture. Most of us are in a budget, and if you can save that money, you can use that money for something else. And for me, that's a huge reason just to be patient, take the time, and wait for the right things to come your way. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's how I plan my room. And I found it to be kind of fun. And it gave me total confidence. When I bought something, I knew where it was going to go, I knew the dimensions, and I knew it would fit. It's not the situation where you buy something and you say, oh, I'm not sure where that's going to go, but I love this thing, so I've got to fit it in. Well, if you find this beautiful piece of furniture, but it's only 6 feet tall and you have a 9-foot tall room and you need that extra 3 feet, you will know that in advance, and you can make the decision, do I love that thing so much that I want to give up that extra space? Your answer may be yes, but at least when you make that decision, you know what you're doing and what the impacts are going to be. Or you may say, you know what, I love this thing so much, I'm going to purge that extra 3 feet of space. And so then it will work for my needs. So again, I just think it gives you so much more control so that you can make the decisions and you'll end up with the room that you want, not what you end up with. Well, I hope this gave you some ideas about how to plan for your own room, closet, or other space that you're trying to work in as a craft area. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment box. I'll answer them as soon as I can. Thank you for joining me. The next video will take a look at the containers and types of storage that I have for the individual types of supplies that we as scrapbookers and card makers have. So make sure you hit the bell and subscribe so that you get a notice when that next video comes up and you can join me again. Thanks so much. I appreciate the time you spend with me. I'll be back soon with a new video.